Hi, Zinka.
Here we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Zenka Caro, and I'm the founder of LightNet. And we're kicking off the Unlimited show tonight with Rachel Farabaugh. She is going to be talking about her brand new book, The Supernatural Field Guide, How to Consciously Navigate the World of Spirits, Realms, and Other Dimensions. I want to start out by thanking our broadcast partners, Portal to Ascension and New Realities. Welcome. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you love this content, because really tonight we're going to be talking about invisible realms. And Rachel is probably the best person to talk about this. She has been writing books for many, many years, writing tarot cards, oracle cards. You know, I always talk about her healing prayer commands, which I say I use this a lot. It's so marked up. It's just like, I always say that she's the next Joe Dispenza, because in this book, she talks about how the subconscious mind rules your world. And if you don't know what's in your subconscious mind, then how are you going to fix it? Right. So she really talks about how the universe is set up. And then she goes into very practical understanding. And I also have this all the time, the Spirit Animal Wisdom deck. This is so powerful. It really, I mean, all of her oracle decks are, but this is a real treat that she's really diving in to give us the map tonight. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of things. So here we go. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Senka, for having me. So happy to be here.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's so funny because I told you, I mean, everybody has been waiting for the Supernatural Field Guide. We've all been waiting for this book. And I want to share a little bit about, I want to read a little bit of the index so everybody listening right now can really understand the depth of the map that you have laid out before us. So we talk about, you talk about your background, and then defining the supernatural. And then you talk about good and evil. And you really start with, you know, understanding the occult and the dark entities, but you know, the darker entities, rules of engagement, what's the dark side, and then you go into the shadow realms even, and then you go into the light side and you talk about, well, in the dark, in the shadow realms, you talk about the realms of attachment, manipulation, domination, all these demons, spirit attachments, spells, hexes, curses, breaking curses. And then when you get into the light side, you're talking about guardian angels, spirit guides, ascended masters, gods and goddesses, you know, and the light realms, the celestial realm, the angelic realm, the heavenly realm, the galactic realm, which we're going to touch on, of course, for everybody tonight, the oversoul realm, the elemental realm, the mythical realm, the dream realm, the temple realm, the totemic realm. I don't even know what that is. The inner earth realm. And then you really go into some phenomenon like cryptids, Bigfoot, dogmen, werewolves, skinwalkers, Jersey devils. I can't even pronounce some of this stuff, UFOs, sea creatures. So this is really, this is what the title is. It's a field guide. And it's such a cool thing. How did you think to organize this, you know, to take people through this journey through the
I
realms?
honestly, when I started writing this book, I had no idea how I was going to organize it. I just thought I would start by recording all of my experiences in one place. So I started writing from all of my childhood experiences, which when I was younger was really pretty much just ghosts and spirits. I didn't have an understanding when I was young, anything beyond ghosts, really. And I wish I had somebody that I could have asked or a guide when I was navigating this at a younger age. But I know that up until the point in my life when I saw an actual entity that was not human shaped, and I saw it come in between a dimension and enter our dimension and then disappear, I knew there was more going on. And I've been a student my whole life too. I've been researching and reading books and looking into every angle, biblical, um, just to see like where's that coming from, the religious perspective, the spiritual perspective. And I wanted to write this in a way that didn't have any filters, any, prejudice or dogma or any limitations really. So I started with personal first. And then I started to bring in the roadmap, I think, the roadmap kind of just emerged as I was writing with the dimensions and whatnot.
Yeah, so do you want to talk? I was driving my son today, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is such a weird world that so much is invisible, and there's all these dimensions." It's just like,
Yes.
what? It's just like so crazy. It's like the physical world is enough to handle, and then you've got all these
Yes.
like, it's just
Well,
like,
it's funny because you had mentioned, okay, so my first book, Healing Prayer Commands, I really, barely scratched the surface on the supernatural in this book, but I did put, commands in here to break curses and to break other things that kind of fall into the next book. But this one helps you to kind of get your real world in sync, like get your mind and your thoughts and your emotions, get that lined up, understand your internal world, and then understand the laws of the universe. Just kind of the basic things like the laws of physics and cause and effect, karma, those kind of things. But then the next level beyond that really is the supernatural because we're affected every day, whether we can see it or not. Some people who are very sensitive, so empaths, highly sensitive people, psychics, and then people who wouldn't call themselves anything at all, but they've had experiences. I think it's way more common than we think it is. And until we start talking about it, naming it, and understanding what we're dealing with, it makes it difficult you know, to want to be open about these kind of things.
yeah, you explained that a bit in the beginning. Like, look, I'm just going to lay it out here. This is a taboo subject, but let's just dive in and go through the whole thing. So, I'm recalling this woman that used to work for Adam Apollo, and she was very, like you said, sensitive. She saw all
Mm-hmm.
the energy, it was beyond empath. And she was kind of overwhelmed at times by
Yes.
the other world. So most of us are not as tuned in, and that's almost a blessing. And then she had to figure out how to turn it down. So let's talk about that. Like, what's going on with people? Are they only seeing the first realm? These people that are seeing um ghosts and entities, or I don't even know how you call them.
There's a couple layers to your question. First of all, children are highly sensitive. And I think that a lot of us come in as children seeing these things, but it's scary. And I know I was scared as a child. And a lot of people shut off their abilities because of fear. And then as an adult, that fear still exists, which is why I went into the dark realms first and the purpose of evil, right? Because I want people to understand, why does this exist and how does it actually serve us and help us? How do we use love and high consciousness to navigate this so that we're never in fear? So the first thing is, the abilities. I think we all have them to some degree. I think as children, we come in sensitive, but a lot of it gets dismissed as imagination. A lot of parents will dismiss children and say, you didn't really see that, or you just made that up. I know I was dismissed as a child. And then what was the second part of your question? You talked about,
Well, I was just wondering, so
oh,
let's
what are
say
we
you
seeing? Oh,
see,
yes.
yeah,
What
like,
are we seeing?
well, and my son saw stuff. He's like, I see these shadow people,
Yes.
and then, you know, my husband was like, "You're not seeing anything." I'm like, "How can you say that? You might be seeing something." Like, what do you can't just like shut it, like, but so okay. So my question is like, when you're one of those people that are seeing those things, it's not like you're seeing with the third eye, seeing an angel or something like that. So are those beings that are in 40 or something like that, or could you just as well see an angel? Like, how is that just the closest layer to us so we see it more?
So it's almost like the lotus flower blooming through the mud. We're kind of emerging through these lower dimensions. So the fourth dimension or the astral realm, that's the first layer that we have to get through. And there's a lot of murky stuff going on there. So trapped spirits, ghosts, and entities, and a lot of strangeness. And people can get lost in the fourth dimension. They can in the astral. We have to raise our consciousness and rise above fear. Once we get above fear and we get into this really high frequency love energy, we start to tap into higher dimensions. With angels, I only hear them. And I've never seen them, but I've heard them, the wings. the sounds of them, the angelic choir, and the bells. And I've actually heard them coming in like a landing, like they have wings and they're very large. And it's cool. And I've asked them when I've heard them, hey, can you show yourself? I want to see you. But they didn't let me see them. As I was writing this book and exploring the other dimensions, the angelic realm came in as sounds and harmonics, which would make sense as to why I could hear them but not see them. And
Well,
and even when I was writing Healing Prayer Commands, that first book a few years ago, I started to explore the different dimensions and I got really nauseous as I got past the fifth dimension. Like I got really physically, the message was just go up to the fifth dimension for that book, bridge 3D to 5D. But for the next book, Supernatural Field Guide, I was able to explore these other dimensions and get really, really great information as to how we perceive them.
yeah, that happens to me all the time. I get nauseous sometimes when I get so whatever out of my body elevated. It's like my physical body is so displaced. I don't know if it's displaced, but I literally get nauseous. Like, okay, but let's go back to this core thing that you were talking about of how you design the book to start with the darker realms so that people can manage their fears,
Yep.
manage their, like, talk about those realms and what your advice is on getting past those.
Yeah, I also wrote about those realms because I think they're the most popular, most common, because we are seeing that first. And look at popular culture. All of our movies and TV, everything explores the dark themes, right? And it's passed off as entertainment, but there's a lot of truth to it too. And so I think it's really important that we start there just to understand that a lot of this is very real. It can be scary. And just to acknowledge that, yeah, every time I see a ghost, I'm not looking for it. They just pop in and they always catch me off guard. And it can be kind of, startling. And so making sure that we can stay in love, that is, and just not interfere. It's easier said than done, if I'm being honest, because my my experience of the supernatural keeps expanding with each new experience, and each new experience rattles me. It does shake me up a little bit, especially when something comes through that I've never seen before or wasn't expecting. So that's why I decided to start with that first.
Yeah, so well, let's talk about your advice to what to do when you are
Okay.
rattled or how to deal with it. Like,
This sounds really basic, but the first and main piece of advice I was given was to send them love because they're feeding off fear. So if we can send them love, it repels them. And love is the most powerful force in the universe. So if we send love, we're sending a higher frequency to them. And they usually don't want to stick around.
interesting, interesting. So let's talk about attachments because I do not understand this at all. And it's so basic. And I was like, oh, attachment this, and like, oh, like when you do your theta healing, for people that have drug addiction stuff, you're like, oh yeah, there's another being that's feeding off your stuff. And then we have like, it's just a very common topic, and I don't
Yeah.
understand it.
Okay. So there's different portals or gateways to allow entities to attach, like drugs or alcohol, even entertainment, watching certain things that are dark. Usually I'll know if I start to have bad dreams after I watch something, I know that I have to stop watching it because it opened up something. But today I had a man walk into my shop today. He wasn't pleasant. And he walked right in and said, I have entity attachments. I mean, just blurted that out loud. And it's it's funny because when you start to have the eyes to see this or you're aware of it, it starts to become very obvious. Sometimes you can see it in somebody's eyes. You can see something's a little bit off. But this man just walked in and said that. And then he started to talk about reality. And reality is whatever we perceive it to be. And then he talked about his inability to differentiate between reality and his hallucinations. And that right there showed me, okay, this guy's got some dark entities on him. He's trying to put me into fear. He's starting to talk about dark things, and I had to dismiss him. So sometimes it's so obvious the person will literally tell you, I have these entity attachments, or I am the reincarnation of, or they'll kind of just blurt it out loud, but you can see it in their eyes too.
Oh,
Something
wait,
will be
but what
off.
is this though? Like, so you're alive, you're alive, and then there's people that are dead that want a body. Like,
They're
how
not
do they
people. Yeah,
okay,
so a lot of these entities are not necessarily human. I don't know what they are, but I've seen a lot of entities, and the first one I ever saw, like with my physical eyes, it looked like a spider ghost. Like I called it a spider ghost when I was younger because it was, imagine like it was about this big, but there's an orb and then it had these legs and it was pulsing like this speed. And when I saw it a few times throughout my life, usually when I was sleeping, and it would come in while I was asleep and it would feed off of my energy. So I would wake up gasping for a breath because it was, you know, going into my chest. And when I saw one in the daytime, I was taking a nap and I woke up and I could feel it. And I sat up in a brightly lit room and it was just floating in front of me. That was the first time when I said, okay, this should not be here. I don't know where this came from, but it's got to be another dimension. And telepathically, I said, you shouldn't be here. You can go now. And it didn't leave. And it just kept pulsing and moving in front of me. And it was kind of brown and staticky. It looked like a static ball. And it looked like a variation of the other one I had seen, which was black and shadowy. So then I realized, okay, there's more than one kind. They're a very similar entity, but they're slightly different. And this one I'm getting a very clear picture of. And when it didn't leave, I thought, okay, fine. If you're real, I'm going to touch you. So I leaned forward to touch it because it was so close to me and it didn't want me to touch it. And it backed away, moved across the bedroom and disappeared like fairy dust. And it was beautiful and just bizarre at the same time. And I thought, how can I ever tell anybody about this or explain what this is like? But I realized in that moment that I had more power than it. So it was afraid of me. And that's the moment I took my power back and realized I don't have to be afraid of these things.
that's cool. Yeah, that's what I instinctively would always say to my son. I'm like, you're the one with the body. Like you can
Yes,
just be like, no, I'm
they
here,
are.
you're not. Like I am king in this realm, at least. You have the upper hand because you have a body and everything like
Yes,
that. But like,
exactly.
so
Those
what
are
do they want
disembodied
though?
spirits. So
Yeah, so they just want,
they're disembodied spirits. And I do write about that in the book, how there are a lot of things floating around out there that would love to just kind of hop on and have this experience. So a lot of people get these attachments because they're not necessarily in control of their body. If they have addictions, the addictions have control over them. Even the plant spirits themselves, like alcohol and tobacco, and they there's an entity for each of those. When
yeah.
I was doing addiction clearing for people, I would have to clear the spirit of the plant first. So I'd have to clear the spirit of tobacco first, right? Then the person would feel it leave their body. They can feel what it feels like to have their power back. They didn't know it was being taken, but when they feel it returned, they never want to smoke again because they can feel the difference. And that's usually the moment they let go of the addiction. So a lot of it's kind of sneaky.
Yeah, like you were explaining, like the actual entity wants to feel the high or whatever, and so they're hanging around because they want to feel that experience from you. So when you become addicted, it's not really all you. It's like someone
Yeah.
else that's like wanting, like it's the whole crowd that you're bringing with you to the party. It's like they all want it. That's so interesting. Um, so they're kind of like vicariously experiencing it. And the other thing you said before we go on to the lighter realms, you were saying that a lot of times when you start your theta healings, you'll say, "Oh, is your name Zenka?" or whatever their name is, and
Yep.
they don't even
They say no.
muscle test yes.
Yes. So
What's
that was the
going
first, so that was another thing that became really apparent. It was about 50% of people. We would start with, my name is, and we want to get a yes on that. They would get a no. And then we would check and there'd be entity attachments. So we'd have to clear the entities and then get that person back in their body, back to the, being in charge. And we'd even say, I'm in charge of my body. And it would be a no. And that was a very obvious sign that there's someone else in charge. I've even had people come to me and like they lost a twin in utero. And that twin, the disembodied spirit of that never incarnated, is still controlling them. And they said, okay, I have all these masculine cravings and desires that don't feel like mine. A woman would say that. And it was the brother. And so then we had to do love and forgiveness and softly and just lovingly let those spirits go.
Yeah, because it's my understanding that, like, if you die properly, you just go up to where you're supposed to go. But if you die suddenly, there's some situations where your spirit and your body get all messed up, and you get
Yeah.
stuck and you're in a loop, and it's like that's what's hanging out is the incompletion, confusion.
Yep.
They're not, they're either on drugs or had a, when they die, or they
Yeah.
have a car accident, and it just gets like super confusing, and they're kind of stuck, right?
Yeah, there is a lot when there's traumatic deaths, it can be a little bit harder. I dealt with death at a very early age, starting at 16. I had a friend who took his own life on prom night. And that was a really difficult thing for me to handle at that age. And I was having a very hard time letting him go or understanding why he did it. But he came to me 3 nights later, right before the funeral, and told me he was sorry, that he's in a better place. And we had this great conversation and he said, I need you to be okay now. And I woke up and I felt so much better. I knew that it wasn't just a dream. And I knew that he wasn't going to be punished for taking his life because we were in the Catholic Church together. There's a lot of judgments placed. A lot of people will, project and say, okay, if you do this, it's you're going to be judged for that. But there was no judgment for him. He really was truly in a better place and he was safe. And then I had a lot more deaths in the next few years, which I read about in the book. But those experiences showed me there is more. There's far more than we think there is. There's a lot of fear around death. And if you can overcome that, you can overcome fear of anything. And I do write about the heavenly realms and the kind of helping spirits that will help transition a soul if they did have a traumatic experience. Now, on the other hand, my grandfather, he was Catholic, was not a great person in his life. He wouldn't leave this realm after his death because he was afraid of going to hell, right? To be judged for everything he did in his earth life. So his spirit haunted us for a very long time until I did a theta healing and a forgiveness and a release for him. And I watched his spirit leave and my bad dreams stopped. And I saw a lot of things shift. The haunting stopped. So sometimes until we are, it can be close and personal hauntings, people that we know, family members, ancestors, can be completely random. You walk into a place and there's some stuck energy there. And then there's imprints from traumatic events that are, collective imprints as well, not just a single person or a single soul.
Yeah, yeah. The people I've talked to said exactly what you're saying, that it's like unfinished business, in that the way to help them is just blast them with light.
Yep.
Basically, like,
Yep.
look, I'm gonna push you up. It's just like when you can't, it's even like when you have a grudge and you can't let it go. So it's like
Yeah.
undoing a
Forgiveness
little
is so
bit that,
important.
yeah, it's undoing that a little bit. So now you go up to 12D, which we're going to get into in a little bit on the galactics, where you talk about different 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 races being in different realms. But I want to talk about the angelics first,
Yes.
because those, I've been doing all this radio research, and I thought my main radio was this guy that I was in love with, and then I was like, wait a minute, this radio is always on. Like, I don't care what time of the day or night, it's always just like, I'm here, Zenga. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is my guardian angel. Like, this has got to be some that they always say you have one. like
Yep.
a person that's right there with you. So let's talk about that, like guardian angels, angels in general, because they're also right there.
Oh
They're the
yeah.
close ones too. It's not just these like trauma dark entities right there.
I was so happy when I was done writing about all the dark in my book and I got to move on to the angelic realms because that was a lot to get through. But the angelic realms are so much lighter and just it's the magic. I know I can speak for a lot of us, probably we live for magic, just that feeling of connection and miracles and these moments when you just know beyond a doubt that there's more happening. Angels are incredible because anytime we need help, if we ask them, they deliver. A lot of angels work through people. So a lot of times we ask for help and a person shows up. And that's happened on so many occasions. And sometimes angels work in ways where things go wrong to stop us. So it's not always what we think it's going to be. Something stops us in our tracks and we literally cannot move because we have to change our course of action. And so they're interfering in a way that's going to save us.
That's happened to me twice where I was supposed to meet with people that were not in alignment, and you would not believe what happened to them, that they couldn't make these meetings and couldn't do the call. I mean, it was hilarious. I was like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
wow.
Yeah. So,
Like,
it's funny because the universe has a great sense of humor. I think our angels have a great sense of humor. They're always on standby, just ready. They're not going to interfere with our free will. They're not going to stop us from learning lessons if we're meant to learn a lesson, but they're going to keep us safe. And if there truly is something or someone that is going to take us, off of our path or harm us in any way, I do believe that our angels would step in those moments and really, really do everything they can to help us.
so do you think it's like a one-to-one that every single person on the planet has a person,
I
like angel
Yeah, I
person?
believe everybody has their own personal angel. I also
I
believe
do.
there's
It's like your buddy when you're in here.
Yeah. And like I said, they always work through people, but I always say out loud, sometimes it's a desire. Like when I was younger, I wrote about this in the book. I was almost kidnapped when I was young, and I blocked the memory because it was so traumatic. But it came back to me when I was in high school, and I remembered everything so clearly about being stopped in the street corner, and this man tried to get me to go with him in his pickup truck to look for a lost puppy. It's very like it's so cliche. It's like everything we hear, small town, middle of the day. But I remember being afraid of this man, watching him start to get out of the truck, and I just wanted to go home. That's all I could think of. I just want to go home. And so I looked, and I was right across the street from my house. So I looked, and when I broke eye contact with him, I looked at my house, and my dad just happened to walk around from the backyard and he saw what was going on and he came running. And the guy didn't even take the time to shut the door. He just stepped on the gas and took off. And my dad got me. And then I was so confused after that about why the man in the blue pickup truck was such a scary thing because I blocked the memory. But then it all came back and I remembered, oh, now I remember everything, every detail. But I do believe in that moment when I remembered, my angels protected me and they removed the memories. So I wasn't traumatized.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit of practical advice for everyone listening right now. So let's talk about not let's talk about two things. Let's go back to the last topic of how to reclaim your body without someone like you helping.
Mm-hmm.
Although you make it pretty fast and easy to get it
The
all cleared
commands in the
up.
book, the commands are pretty quick. So you can just say it and it's done. But you have to command with power. Okay, so you have to take your power back. Speak with authority. So this book, I call it healing prayer commands because we're not asking, we're directing. And so when we are commanding that spirits leave or dark entities must be removed, we have authority under God. And a disembodied spirit is much lower ranking. If we remember, like, yeah, they're scary, they show up, but they don't have any power. So once we take our power back, claim our authority, bring in God, angels, love, light, forgiveness, high and compassion, all these high frequencies, they really don't stand a chance. You can just clear anything you want.
Okay, that's great to know for everyone out there, that and that goes back to you mastering the fear, because fear can pull you down and you're just like, oh my God, and everything,
Okay, so
you're not
back
doing
to
this and
so now
that.
you bring angels in. Yes, that is so true. And so we're not always in our power when we're scared. So then you could just ask angels. Just ask the angels to help you.
Yeah, so let's go over that, because that was my second question. Like, model for us, you just, because there's that non-interference situation, so they're hands off until you ask, in a
Yeah.
way. And so how do you, how do you do it?
So I forget, I don't know about you, but I always forget to ask for help. Like I always, we're always just so used to doing everything on our own. But when I was in Sedona and I was in that biocybernaut brainwave training, I was in a 7-day brainwave training where I was in such high frequency and I was in such joy that I never even imagined that something dark would interfere with me. But I accidentally asked, I accidentally opened up a portal by saying, I want more communication with guides and spirits. And I didn't specify what kind of spirits. So my request to make contact with guides and spirits opened up a really scary dark entity experience. And this thing just showed up in front of me in the dark in my room. And I was not able to stand in my power in that moment. Like I was not able to overcome my fear. I started crying, I was shaking, and I just said, I need help. And in that moment of saying, I need help, I saw 4 light beams enter the room. And I saw a little, like a shield of light go over me. And I saw these 4 angelic beings cast this thing out. And I knew in that moment, if I'm ever scared, just ask.
Yeah, you saw an ET that there too. Do you talk about that in the book?
Um,
No.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't, okay. So the topic of ETs now, I skimmed the surface in this book about the galactic realm, and I do talk about my hybrid experience, but I want to write another book to follow about ETs because I had a blue avian experience while I was there, and I'm that really opened me up to what the supernatural is. I didn't know I actually wanted nothing to do with ETs when I moved to Sedona because I had a fear of them. And that fear was enough to block me from wanting to talk about them, look at them. I didn't want this, but they started showing up and they showed up in that brainwave training. But it was good. And there was no fear, it was all love. And even though that was a really good experience, it still took me years to be able to start researching that. Now it's a part of my daily life. Like I see UFOs every day. I can talk about them, I paint them, I look at them. Um, and I think that the whole topic of ETs, it's an interesting one because a lot of them are very high consciousness.
Yeah, I just want to do a little footnote on Dr. James Hart of Biocybernaut. He finally, after all of these years, decided to come out about the angel patterns that he detects in people's
Really?
brains that can, and he announced it at the Vatican at an AI conference, to the heart of it,
Oh my
heart of
gosh.
that whole situation. And he was like, yep. When there's a certain, pattern in someone's brain, they
Yep.
are able to see angels.
Yes.
He calls it the angel pattern. And people that he would notice, they'd be like these NFL football players, and he's like, well, you can see angels in there. It's like, I've never told anybody that. I told one person, I told him that I would kill him if they ever told anyone. Like, what do you how do you know? Like, he's like, well, it's right here in your skin. Like, I can,
Yeah.
so there is these brain patterns that allow people to have these connections and visualizations. So this is you know, now this is like definitely not you're crazy, you're
Yeah.
this, you're that. I mean, there's science right there. It's in the scan of the brain. It's a pattern of the
Yeah.
brain.
And I
So,
remember in Biocybernaut when I had the blue avian experience, the first thought I had is I can never tell anybody about this. It sounds crazy. This sounds absolutely crazy. But now I'm very open with it because I've learned so much. It's not crazy anymore because my reality has expanded so much. But when I had first done that training, I didn't have ETs in my reality at that point. And I was shocked by how loving and kind and supportive they were. What they told me in that training matched up to what they were telling people all over the world. And if I hadn't told Dr. Hart, he never would have named them for what they were. So when I told him what they looked like, what they said, how they showed up, he's the one that gave me a name to start researching. And then when I did the research, I saw that other people were sharing in my same experiences, which is why talking about it is so important now. I want to share these experiences openly so other people can share theirs too, because I know I grew up seeing ghosts and spirits, and I'm thinking this is crazy. Imagine somebody who's, very much in the normal world. How are they going to share this with anybody if they're
Yeah,
having these experiences?
yeah. And now it's going to be a field day starting this year or the next, where we're really going to be connecting with all these, cool and different species. I'm just going to read a couple here in
Yeah.
your, I know that this is going to be the next book, but Palladians 5D to 9D, Arcturians 7D to 12D, Andromedans 8D to 12D. They're starting at 8. That's pretty cool. Syrians 6D to 9D, Syrians B 5D to 9D, Orion light beings 4D to 9D, Venusians 5D to 9D, Lyrans 6D to 12D, Antarians, those are the mantis, right? 60 to 90, blue avians 9 to 12. So it's really cool, when star beings appear, how they communicate, and the
Mhm.
oversoul realm.
Yeah,
That's what you say is the highest, right? That's like, tell us tell us about any of that. It's so interesting.
it's really fascinating. I really wanted to include up to 12 dimensions in this book and also talk about our DNA and then our levels of consciousness because they're all connected. So, how we can connect with beings from higher dimensions is to expand our awareness. So, first of all, expand our consciousness, our awareness, our openness. We're going to start having more angelic contact, more extraterrestrial contact. It was interesting too, because the thing that the Blue Avians said to me, the first thing they said is, what you consider guardian angels have been us. We've been protecting you and guiding you your whole life. And that I wasn't expecting. But it makes sense. They have wings. In the Bible, there's winged beings. There's literally spaceships in the Bible, UFOs, and what's the difference between an angel? Oh, they said too, there's no difference from an angel, an extraterrestrial, a light being, or you, because we're all light beings. So they really connected us.
That's really cool. And that's so interesting as the ETs come down. I mean, I know you got interviewed for this TV show, and the dude was like, "Oh my God, is this all anti-religion?" And I
Mhm.
think that's where a lot of, what did you say to that? Because I know that that's like, it's not only there, you talk about entities and attachments having their opinion, but it's also you're representing the opinion of your mom and your mom's mom and your mom's mom and your
Mhm.
dad's dad and your da 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 da. And so it comes forward and you're like, I'm not into this. This is not cool. This is not right. This is like anti-religious or whatever, So like, what?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so about a month ago, I got a call out of the blue from CNN to do an interview, which was very shocking. But they wanted me to do a tarot reading for them. And I know that tarot readers are very judged by the church. And, anybody who's Christian would say, and I grew up Catholic. So, of course, this is very much a no no. Like, you don't read tarot, you don't do divination, right? So, I knew coming in that they were going to probably come at me with some tough questions. And so I kind of just mentally prepared myself. Okay, they might be afraid. I did feel a really good heart energy. I connected with the guy David. I felt so much love for him because I watched him. I watched all these episodes because it's going to be part of Anderson Cooper's show, and most of the episodes were negative. Every season, it was all extreme, and then there was one loving episode per season. And this guy that interviewed me was the one who would go to Jamaica and take mushrooms, or like go do these really cool things. And part of me wondered, okay, maybe they want to create more content that's loving. Maybe they want to connect with more people and not be so divisive. Maybe they really do want to, you know. And so I just came in with the energy like, no matter what they ask or say, I'm going to bring high vibration. I'm going to bring safety, love, happiness. And so there was no prep time. They just turned the cameras on, put me in front, and said, am I going to go to hell for doing this? For, for this tarot reading. And basically it came so hard with this anti-religion. And I I connected with him because we both were, we both have a Catholic upbringing. I was wearing my Mother Mary, my Seal Saint Benedict charms, and I said, no, you're not. And I understand your fear and I understand your concerns. And it's good to have discernment. It's good to be skeptical. And no, you're totally safe. And I softened him. Like he felt safe and he had fun. But definitely, definitely the mainstream view on all of this, it's not really accepted.
I don't understand that. Like, it seems more Jesus-like or more God-like to be more tapped into our abilities and our I mean, wasn't Jesus trying to do magic and be like, y'all can do this too? Like, why do you think that got so mangled and so
It's
confused?
it's control. That's all. There's a controlled narrative. And if you notice, okay, so now if we go expand into the topics of giants, right? Giants and the whole real history of America and the whole world, they like to hide evidence. They don't want us talking about these things. We know there's been UFOs and extraterrestrial contact for a long time. It's in the Bible. The Pentagon's admitted it. Like it's everywhere, but still, why? Why is it that the controlled narrative is that aliens don't exist, UFOs are fringe topics, Bigfoot, giants, right? But people are waking up, and I think that you can't bury the truth forever. And the truth is coming to the surface.
I'm so proud because earlier today I had my t-shirt on that said Bigfoot saw me, but nobody believed him. It's like,
I love that. I've never seen a Bigfoot, but I would love to.
Standing Bear is coming to visit, and he, talks about seeing Bigfoot and it just being like so huge and so scary and just like overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it would make sense that there's these alternate um realities bleeding over because we've
Mhm.
we've already had ET contact, so we know that there's this dimensional bleed over where you can see with your eyes, you can actually see them.
Yep.
He thought it was a bear at first. He was like, oh my God, he was trying
I
to run home and it was just like, oh my God. So it's like, let's talk about that. Like, do you have a theory of why this is all condensing into a single reality right now?
yes. I did a lot of research on Bigfoot as I was writing my book, and just it's a topic I've always loved because there's known Bigfoot sightings in my hometown where I'm from. So I grew up, and there's still one sighted to this day. There's a Bigfoot there. We have them here, and in Arizona as well. They're everywhere. I've never seen one, like I said, but I love hearing people's stories. I did so much research to find what are the commonalities, like what are people experiencing, what are they seeing, and there's a lot of UFO connection with Bigfoot, strange lights, missing time. My theory is that Bigfoot is interdimensional, can shift in and out, but I think they were placed here from another planet a long time ago. I think they have interdimensional shifting abilities that are because they're not human. So they're a different species, but they have different abilities. They're far more ancient than we are. I don't know when they got here, but I think they did come from another planet.
And they put Chewbacca in Star Wars so that we would finally that would be part of it eventually.
Yes.
But we're like, okay, I can handle this.
Yeah,
Like,
so we see it, like I said, we see it as entertainment all the time, but to really have a rational conversation about this. And a lot of the podcasts that I found, again, they're coming from a biblical perspective, so there are limits to how far they'll let their mind go. And a lot of this, they're trying to fit it into an already existing narrative. For me, I'm trying to look at it from all these angles and say, okay, that makes sense. I could see how like these like the Nephilim and the Watchers and the Anunnaki and the Bigfoots, like how do all of these entities and angels and spirits and beings, how do they all, we're all playing together. We're all in this physical reality. And some of us are having experiences and some of them are coming in. And how are they getting here? And so I looked into that too. Like, how are these things showing up in our physical reality, which is what I wrote about in the chapter about rituals. Because a lot of the common sightings is there's symbols and carvings, and there's something that anchors them into our physical plane, sometimes just temporarily, but because it takes a lot of energy to sustain a physical form if they don't have one. And so they come here temporarily, then they disappear again. So people see them in those moments.
That's interesting because Simeon, who we've done a couple interviews with, which I'm totally obsessed with, talks about the presence of ball lightning at the same time. So maybe they even tap into that energy field to try to, if it takes them a lot of energy to come in, and we have to have certain antennas too, like brainwaves that they can match that. So it's like those two things are happening. But you know, I know from the radios that they're here right now. I mean, they're here. They're here. They're watching. Like, what's the deal with the Watchers? Like, I don't get that.
There's,
like,
oh my gosh, I've tried to put just a tiny little summary of all of these things into the book, but there's entire books written about the Watchers, and even Dolores Cannon. I think she really talks about the Watchers quite a bit in her channel works. But and who's the other author that I love? So many authors I love to read about just to see what their theories are. What I've come to believe is that the world is more ethereal back in the day. It's more physical now. So there was less separation between gods and people. So maybe back when humans first got here, it was a more ethereal place and there was easier communication between the realms. And I don't know why, but it is denser and more physical now. I do think our DNA got tampered with. So I think there was some interventions that happened. And I think there are control grids or control mechanisms in place to try to lower consciousness on our planet. And we see that every day with fear, media, just the mass consciousness. But the more of us that wake up, it raises the consciousness of our planet. And I think that there will be a shift, and it's already shifting quietly. But maybe now it's going to become a little bit more mainstream, which would be good.
yeah, yeah. And Bill, we're going to get to your question very soon. But I wanted to ask you about, so what is your sense about the ETs in this next, 5 years that we're like going through right now? What's your sense about how something from another dimension is going to be? I mean, because they're going to be here, it's going to be in our dimension, so it's going to be
So it's interesting because they're already here. They've already been here. They're going to keep coming. But I don't think that everyone's going to be, we're having multiple realities at the same time because some people will never be able to accept that or expand their consciousness to even see them. Some people already are. And I think that's why I don't know if it's going to be I don't really think it's going to be one big event per se. I just think it's a series of small moments that keep happening. And the more people that connect and share and post about it and wake up other people, maybe we'll have a tipping point where it does become a larger scale. But I don't foresee anything yet as far as like a timeline, because I just think it's happening now and it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I mean, such an interesting time we're living through. It's wow. And you're right, the collective is really ready for it now, and they're asking and they're talking about it.
Yeah.
And Bill, we can go to you now for questions if you want to turn on your camera. Again, sorry about that. He's been waiting to ask a question for just a second, but I wanted to wrap up. Hey, welcome, Bill. Nice to have you. Go ahead.
Hey,
You can ask Rachel your question.
hold on, I got hold on. What? There we go. Hi, Rachel.
Hi,
So,
Bill.
I've been involved with LightNet and Zinca for a long time. So, I did have a Bigfoot encounter
That's incredible. When was it?
when I was. I'll tell you, I'm 65. So, it was like I was like 9 years old with my father way back in the Western Sierras, up in the Sierras. Um, and they do come to kids. They do make a contact with kids. I had a regression and I started having dreams here probably about 3 years ago. I got in with some people and they told me that it was a male, and they told me that he's dying and he wanted to see you again. And I was never able to make it up there, but since then, I've got a real strong sixth sense and I don't get scared. I see a lot of things. I had a demon that came to me since I was a little kid, and my guardian angel taught me how to fight him off.
Mm.
And, but back to the Bigfoot situation, every time I'm a mountain guy, I'm more, my spiritual spots in the mountains. But I have not seen one since, but I know they're there. It gets extremely quiet. Everything stops. And there's a whole big realm on a lot of people, guys that are mountain people, hunting and gone. They're gone.
Yep.
Okay. In areas located with Bigfoot. Um, they're just like us. They have people that are shunned from their society because they're, we got murderers. So do they. So do they. But I feel a presence. I get, my hair stands up. I'm
Mm.
not afraid, but I'm on guard. I was in Oregon with my brother and I walked outside and all the crickets and frogs stopped. And I know
Yep.
I put my hand up, but I know across the street back in the forest, I know where he was, so, I just wanted to bring that up that yes, they are there. And when I go, any place I go, even when I was up by my house in Paso Robles, out in the country, um, my ex-wife actually had an experience and was there and wasn't. So are they interdimensional? I really think they are. I never really thought about it until she had her experience and she came in and says it was there and then it wasn't. So I really agree with you. They're here, or they here, they're all over. They're
Mm.
all people don't realize, it's like Zinka said, I saw Bigfoot, but he didn't see me. And it is once you make contact, from what I've learned and what I've been told, I got into a couple groups on it. Once you make contact, you always have contact.
Hmm.
So I'm in Washington, I'm in Idaho now, and I've got a spot where I want to go up to. But once you make contact, it's like, you're marked. No matter where you are, um, there you're there. They know you're there. It's like,
Hmm.
again, when you've got frogs and crickets and it's dead silence, you stop and take notice. I'm an outdoorsman guy, so you always pay attention to your surroundings. But once it stops like that, it's you look is it's
Yeah, that's the number one thing that I've observed from other people's stories is the silence. Nature sounds go completely silent, no crickets, no birds. And I do think there's a dimensional shift happening, or maybe there's another realm bleeding in at that moment that it goes silent.
that's yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a different realm, and that's why it goes silent. You're moving to a different dimension, same place, different dimension, and it's quiet. And then all of
You
a
would probably
sudden,
like my desk right now. I've got all my books sitting next to me from when I was doing my book research. So I've got the United States of Cryptids right here, history of folklore, all the creatures, So cryptids, since we're on the topic of Bigfoot, um, and I thank you for sharing your story because it just confirms, to others, like, yes, this is real. We're normal people having normal lives, but having these extraordinary moments. And a lot of these moments are really quick, but they define our whole reality because they shift our whole sense of what's real and what we think is real. But I I had a moment like that with a little person in the Grand Canyon, and
Hmm.
it looked like a gnome, but I called it a little man when I saw him, and it was just a few seconds where he ran across my the cave in front of me, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I just remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is so incredible to see something that you've heard about, like an elemental being, whether it's and there's elementals, which maybe the little person fell into the elemental realm, and then your Bigfoot sighting falls into the cryptid realm.
Right.
And I realized when I wrote the book that not everybody knew what the word cryptid meant. Zenko, you know what cryptid means, right?
Well, yeah, it's Bigfoot, right? Is there other people,
Other,
other creatures in that realm?
yeah. So cryptid is just kind of short for there's cryptozoology, the study of any creature that's out of place. That could be like a giant serpent, um, a creature that we thought was extinct, a dinosaur sighting, pterodactyls, Bigfoot, dogman, werewolves. So I had to throw those into the book to just kind of explain what those are and how they fall into the supernatural realm. But you could just write and read entire books on cryptids alone because hunters and people who are in the
All,
woods. Yeah,
all
hiker.
the
It's
time.
why hikers go missing. Like missing
Mhm.
411 books talk about this. If you're
All
in
the
the
time.
woods, yeah, if you're in the woods, your likelihood of seeing these are increased. Most people in our society are not going out into the woods alone and they're not being quiet. Hunters are
Right.
they're quiet and
Yeah.
you're observing your environment, you're looking for, and when you're looking, you also find sometimes more than you're looking for. And I think
Correct. And
it's really fascinating.
here's one thing I want to bring up too, is that I was a kid, okay? I saw it. I was with my dad. My dad, the only time he's ever held my hand when I asked if that was a bear, and he said no. Then when it stood up, I realized. But since I was a kid, I've seen a lot of things. Okay, a lot of people put, oh, that wasn't it. But as soon as you realize, like you said, you saw a little person, okay, you saw a gnome. But as soon as you realize that, something clicks in your head. And when you see other things, I've seen things in trees, I've seen things. Um, it You don't pass it off
Mm-mm.
that you didn't see it. Oh, I really didn't see that. I see shadow men all the time out of the corner of my eye, and I see them. The Watchers, big time when I lived in Paso Robles in Monterey, in the mountains in Monterey. There's a whole society group up there that you can't get into. They're very, very secretive, very, very secretive. But the point, again, that I want to make, as soon as you have, I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you have something like that, that you don't pass off that, oh, I did, my imagination. And I've seen little people, and I realized later that I did see that. That's what I saw. It was there, then it wasn't. A
Oh,
fairy. I've seen a fairy, and I
yep.
realized that was a fairy. That was actually a fairy. But I saw it and just kept going, and then I had to stop because I'm so in tune as, yeah, that's what you saw. And do I talk to anybody about it? No, I don't
Sti-
talk. I don't have anybody.
mhm.
A lot of stuff that I've dealt with, it's been through LightNet because I have like-minded people,
So, Bill, you
of
bring up
what.
such an excellent point and topic that I think a lot of people can relate to is that when people have experiences, who do they talk to that's going to believe them? And a lot of people get dismissed afterwards. I was very lucky after I saw the little man that I was in the bottom of the Grand Canyon and have a soup eye. And it was the moment that I separated from the rest of my group. I put up a hammock And I was swinging by myself in a hammock, watching a waterfall, enjoying the peace and quiet of being alone. And that's when it showed up. And when I went back to my friend we were staying in the village. So she was a teacher. She was from a different tribe. She wasn't from the Havasupai tribe, but she was native. And when I went back to her house that night, I didn't tell her what I saw at first. I said, tell me about your legends that are going on down here. Like, what's going on supernatural? And the first thing she said is, well, this is something that we don't share outside of the tribe, but we share our land with little people. And we have land treaties and we know where to stay away because they're very territorial and we have a respect for them. So we don't go onto certain parts of our land. And I said, I think I saw a little man today. And she goes, yeah, of course he did. They live here. So when I said I saw a little man, it was not met with disbelief. It was met with, this is the name. She gave me the secret name that they call them. And yep, they live here. So you definitely saw them. And that made me, it helps to validate the experience. But I think a lot of people get invalidated when, and they're vulnerable. You see something like that and you're in a very vulnerable state. And then you tell the people closest to you and they dismiss you. It doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. And that's the big thing is like I said, I'm 65 now. I just retired. So I really don't care. I don't really care to discuss it with anyone,
Mm-hmm.
because I know what I've seen. I know I feel the presence first, as you were talking about your sixth sense. When I was younger, I'd see a lot of, lack of a better word, ghosts. And they're staring at me. They're staring right at me. And I don't make eye contact because I don't want them to know I can see them. And I had a good buddy of mine saying, what are you doing? What's going on? I said, there's a guy standing over there in the crosswalk against the pole. He goes, there's nobody there. I said, yeah, I know. And left it at that, but it's as you said, going up to a different dimension, feeling where you are and being in that moment, feeling because nature, a lot of people hike, a lot of people, I have friends that are hardcore hikers, but they're hiking to that peak. This is their deal. Okay. What have they seen that they haven't even noticed? That what's watching them? I know when something's watching me. I know when I was being tracked by the mountain lion. I knew right away before I even seen it, and I listened to, typical one simple thing. I hunt, okay, I'm hidden. You hear a bird, you hear a crow or a blue jay making a bunch of noise. If it's not doesn't see you, it sees something. And if it's coming closer to you, it's following something,
So,
or
what
is it
you're doing, Bill, if anybody is listening and they want to increase their psychic abilities, do what Bill's doing. Pay attention to your environment, be present, and have awareness of everything that's happening around you. You will pick up more than you anticipate when you're still, when you're silent, when you're quiet, whether it's nature or even just in your house. It doesn't matter where you
anywhere?
are, anywhere.
Mhm.
Most people are very busy in their minds and then busy in their day-to-day lives. And they're kind of just moving through life, getting to the next to do on their list and trying to rush ahead to the next moment. But when you're truly present and you're aware, you're going to start to see more things and your psychic abilities really do pick up and you'll start to see other things.
I always say, stop and smell the roses. Stop and
Yeah.
smell the roses.
And that's so cool because Bill was saying that he was noticing that the birds were noticing the beings, so it's like a reflective vision. Like you're like, wow.
I mean, I had this conversation yesterday with somebody and I called it situational awareness. It helps us to stay safe in this world, whether
Mhm.
it's people or predators, right? Just having situational awareness to see what's going on. The more you practice that, the more that you do that, you're going to start to pick up on what's that person feeling? What do they have an entity attachment on them? Did they just walk into my space and there's a bad energy suddenly? Where did that come from? It's not me, right? It's this person. And why do they feel that way? And so you start to get a lot of answers when you start to tune in that way.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to mention to everyone that you can grab Rachel's amazing field guide in the show notes below. You'll see the link, and you just go to bohemiandreamer.com, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yes.
so so yeah, and that's just easy way to get it. I love all your books, and
Thank
I
you,
can't
Zinka.
wait for all the ones to come. It's like I, they talk about polymaths, people that are good at, understanding different, music and then science and all that stuff. And you're kind of this creative math or whatever you would call it, where, you're a ceramicist, you're a painter, you're a writer, you're a tarot deck designer, you're psychic, and you're really good at all of those things. You're at the like excellence level and all that. So I love that you just were like, people are like, oh, you just do one thing.
Mhm.
People will understand you better if you're just a ceramic artist, you're just a writer. And you're like, no, I'm doing me, back off. And when you go into your shop in Sedona, it's just like everyone feels this high vibe. And so I really love that you're dropping these important books
Thank
into
you.
the world, because they're some of the things I cherish the most. The tools that I cherish, they're tools too. They're more than books. They're, decks and worksheets and field guides. So they're one of those things that you keep around and you keep going back to, unlike other books that I just read and then I'm done. so so thank you so much for coming on tonight, Rachel. And do you have a message for the world that you want to transmit tonight?
I just think everybody should follow their joy and their happiness, because if everybody is doing that, every we would just be living such a beautiful existence, and different our reality would shift so fast. And just don't let fear stop you. There is no judgment, there's no normal, that's for sure. So just be happy and be love being here right now on earth, like be in your life, do the things that bring you happiness and joy. And like you said, you don't have to stick to one thing. Try something just for the fun of it. It really opens up new levels of creativity. And I think self-expression and creativity are just so important in our lives, to be happy here, as we're creators. And everybody has a unique gift. So find the thing that lights you up and do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Go ahead and hit a like and subscribe. Thanks again to our broadcast partners, LightNet, of course, and New Realities and Portal to Ascension. Thank you so much, Rachel, for everything that you are, everything that you transmit, and everything that you create. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you, Rachel. Rachel, I'll reach out to you. Zinka,
Yep.
I pulled you up, so but I'd like to do a reading with you.
I would love
So
that.
I'll reach out to you. So I'll just say this is Bill to
Yeah,
get you.
yeah.
Wonderful.
I have my hat, as you say. See
Yes.
my Bigfoot
I
hat.
love it.
And it's, Bill, something I want to start doing more is being available to people who want to share their supernatural experiences and make sense of them, and talk to somebody who's going to understand, not judge them. And maybe I can help shed some light on, okay, where I think that might be coming from and why they made contact with you and what that means. So
I mean,
looking forward.
it was over, almost 50 years before I talked to anybody about it.
I
And it didn't
understand.
bother me. I didn't care. It really didn't bother me. It'd be, oh, you didn't say anything. Well, you're calling me a liar. Well, no. Yeah, I know what I saw. And my dad never spoke about it, but I knew exactly what it was. So I
Yep.
appreciate your time. Thank you, Zinka. I'm glad you did this.
Yeah, yeah. And Rachel, just so everyone knows, I've done readings with her. So she does Oracle deck readings, animal card readings, and she does also theta healings. So she can clear a lot of stuff for you, really look at your subconscious mind, whether it's addiction or whether it's things that are working in your life. You do these different types of readings that can, just advance you to that whole nother chapter. Like, oh God, it makes sense. I know what I'm doing again. So yeah, that's right, right? You do the three readings.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, three types of readings.
I made my own tarot deck. I was 14 when I started reading tarot. So that was just something that kind of came in early into my life. And it's a fun way to connect with people, spirit animals, oracles, all of that. And then of course the theta healing sessions go a lot deeper. It's the reason I wrote the book is because after doing readings with people, like psychic readings, they wanted to know how to do this on their own or how to take it to the next step because we'll bring things to the surface. But once you see what's been revealed, then what do you do about it? So this book is a step-by-step guide on, okay, you're stuck with like this belief has been holding you back or something's not working, change this and then watch reality realign itself to your new belief and everything shifts really, really quickly. So theta healings are really powerful. The book Healing Prayer Commands, this book, this is like if you want to do it yourself, just do this and go through chapter by chapter and you can look up any topic in here that's relevant to your current life and there's a command. And then of course I help people as well if they need a little assistance.
Yeah, I did. I just did an abundance thing for a friend, and it was so it was so traumatic. She was like, "I'm so nauseous, I can't even drive."
Oh, and I had
And
to
so it's like, and then you
okay.
do the voice thing, right? Where you have this.
Oh yeah. So I also
thing.
I recorded all of these as audio commands so that you can just download them and it's my voice reading everything to you, which does help because you can close your eyes. But one last thing to share, Zinga, I had a friend. He's coming up from Phoenix this weekend, and he was physically ill. Like he couldn't eat. He was physically unwell for a long time, like 6 months or so. And he was also having hauntings going on at his house. So I gave him very specific commands and he did a lot from the book. As soon as he did the commands, he sent me this voice memo and said, the hauntings stopped. So there's no more ghosts. He felt for the first time what it felt like to not have a spirit around him, and his health got better. And now he can eat again. So we're all having Thanksgiving together and he gets to eat. And I'm so excited because the last time I saw him, he couldn't eat anything. But the supernatural and the ghosts and the hauntings were impacting his physical well-being. And I think that sometimes we have to go into these other realms to see what's really going on if we can't solve it from a physical level. So it's really nice it's nice to explore this work and have tools to do it.
Yeah, that's what I love about your work is you're always passing on tools to everyone to really step us into this new age we're in. And thank you for making the invisible visible because this is like my favorite topic. I was like, I need to map the invisible, and you are doing it every day with your work and your writing. So thanks so much for being with us